Hey, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back, but first, we want to give our sponsors a shout out. Take 3 minutes, listen to these shout outs. You're going to be glad you did. Here we go. Hey, we want to say thanks to Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support of the podcast. Go to their website, take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to say thank you to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years. As an AD, we were a Huddle school. Go to huddle.com to check out all the great things they can do for your program. We also want to say thank you to Snap. If you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been disappointed in the results, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. Tell them you heard about it on the podcast. Snapraise.com. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Probably the best purchase I ever made as an athletic director was my Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com for more information. We want to say thanks to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and let their team turn you into a social media marketing guru. That's Gipper.com. It's so easy, even I can do it. We want to say thank you to Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform you're going to use every day. It's as simple as that. Scheduling, rosters, results, athletic eligibility. Go to homecampus.com. We want to thank Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. My assistant AD, along with thousands of others, got his master's through the Ohio program, and it was a great experience. Check out Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Hometown. Hometown's changing the game with their solutions that include, well, digital ticketing, athletic website construction, fee-free fundraising, and a whole lot more. Go to hometown.com. Don't forget to mention the podcast. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going up to Montana today, and we're going to be visiting with Mark Ator. Mark is the district athletic director for Bozeman School District. That includes Bozeman High School and Gallatin High School, also two middle schools. Has a tremendous background in athletics. We're excited to have him on the show. Mark Ator, welcome to the Educational AD Podcast.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's a great honor to be here.
Okay, well, the honor is ours, but we appreciate those kind words. For our listeners, we're recording this. Fall sports are done, winter sports are going hard. It's kind of a few days before our national conference in Tampa. So hopefully we'll be able to connect with you in Tampa. But let's go and jump right in. Mark, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us your quick bio, where you were born, where you grew up. As I like to say, tell us, that life story through college in 2 minutes. But what's the Mark Ator origin story?
Mark Ator grew up on the family farm in Medicine Lake, Montana. It's a little town about a half hour from North Dakota and a half hour from Canada in the northeast corner. Family of six, great family. And then went to school at town, Medicine Lake High School. We were the Medicine Lake Honkers when I went. I was in the right place at the right time. I went to school with a bunch of great people. We had a lot of success in athletics and academics. We pushed each other. Still lifelong friends. And then even where I grew up, the northeast corner of Montana was made up of a lot of small towns, and I just a lot of good friends from almost every community. It was a great place. Went to Montana State University here in Bozeman. I got a degree in math education, history minor. Got done 4 years. Ended up in Colstrip, Montana, with my first teaching job.
You know, I've never been to Montana. I mentioned that earlier, but I'm from Oregon, so it's not like I'm some, big city guy. I think many of us, including me, think it's mountains and, wild mountain sheep and things like that, rams. What was your experience growing up in Montana, and how did sports revolve in that?
Well, Montana's got two distinct things. We have the mountains and we have the farmlands, the plains. And I grew up on the plains, no mountains in sight, a few small lakes. Um, and our wildlife basically birds and deer. My our farm was right next to the wildlife refuge, so uh, big time game hunting, bird hunting back then. Sports were just integral. My first memory as a young one was two things: watching the Red Sox and the Reds in the World Series, and then Medicine Lake winning the state basketball championship when I was like 6 or 7. And I remember going to the game, a couple of games with my dad, and then listening to a lot of the games on the radio, including the state tournament. At that time, like I said, I had 5 brothers, a sister, and we didn't leave the house a whole lot. We didn't go, taking a family of 8, and I was the oldest. So um, my travels, mom and dad kept us home a lot. So I was one of those kids that sat and listened to games on the radio. So, and that always stuck out to me. Medicine Lake winning a state championship. And then that's all, our friends and I did. We played sports year round. I was with a ton of good athletes at the time. We had a lot of success in high school. We fell short. We made it to state tournaments and state championships, but never won one ourselves. But there's no regrets. It was always fun, and the bus rides and all that stuff was fun. Being with teammates was fun. Practice was fun, and honestly, the teams we lost to in the state championship games, I'm friends with a lot of those guys on those other teams. Now didn't really like them back then, but now today we're good friends, and so it just a ton of good memories, and just being with our friends, and it was something my folks, the town of Medicine Lake, supported. I mean, the high school was supported, and our sports were supported back then. I grew up, I had great teachers and great coaches. Like I said, I've been lucky.
Now, you mentioned Medicine Lake growing up on the farm. I'm imagining, maybe a small, medium-sized town. What were some of those memories of, hanging out with your buddies, whether it's in sports or even maybe during the summer? What are some things you can share with our listeners?
It was a small town. It is probably back then, our high school was about 60 students, probably a town of 500. So basically, everybody played sports. The summertime, we were 3 miles out, so from the town, but our farm became a gathering point. We had a place for a kicker ball or a kickball. We had a baseball. We had a little baseball diamond we built. We had a basketball court hanging, off the garage. We could turn it into a football field in the fall. So we also rode motorcycles, and back then 3-wheelers. So we had little courses for that. It was fun. It was adventurous. There were some injuries at times, but it was always fun. So that was our summer activities. And in that size of town, everything revolved around school activities. I mean, that's it. We all met, Friday nights or Saturday afternoons for basketball and football games. That's where everybody was. And social events, there was parties before, or dinners afterwards. Um, that was it. It was a life centered around the high school, and it was fun. Good people. I grew up with good people.
Oh boy, you're making me think back my own memories. I don't talk that often with people who had, 3-wheelers and dirt bikes and things like that growing up, and that was definitely, part of my experience as well. Um, let's go and talk about that transition from high school onto college. Small town, very successful sports program. Were you thinking about competing at the next level, and how did that all play out for you?
Honestly, there is, I just wasn't. Uh, I knew I was going to be a coach right away because I did not have a lot of physical attributes. I had my intelligence, and sometimes that's probably lacking too. I went to school with the full. I wanted to get a teaching degree and I wanted to coach as soon as possible. I always tell people, and rightfully so, there were times where I played 8 man. We were an 8 man football team,
Right.
and I played with such good athletes. I was usually the ninth man. That's how it worked out for me. And so college, my whole thing was I wanted to get a degree and start teaching and coaching right away. I started, even back then, college started in September, because we were on a quarter system. So I would help uh, Medicine Lake High School. Our football coach had me come in the first 6 weeks of the season in August and September, and I would help coach until like the very day when class started. I would leave after practice like at 4 o'clock and drive the 8 hours to 7 to 8 hours to Bozeman and start school the next day. I did that for a couple of years, and then I student taught in the fall so I could coach football. So I started coaching. I joined the Coaches Association here in Montana when I was 20 or 21, something like that. I joined right away just because I knew that's what I was going to do. So I got a degree in math and history. I spent a lot of time going to athletic events. My roommates, I had a roommate who was a very good athlete. He was good at everything. And shout out to Crumwitty there. And Brian, so I would look at his playbook when he was playing for the Cats. He was a starting tight end for the Cats. So I would sit there and I'd go to practice and hang out. I'd go over the playbook and, because that was my goal eventually, is to be a football coach. And then, I got my degree at MSU. The transition was hard, small town to the big college. It took me a little while. Sometimes I had to work on managing my social time and my work time, a little bit better as things went on. But eventually I got that and got a degree here at MSU, which, I'm back in Bozeman now with MSU, and I am a proud Bobcat. So, in that sense, it's kind of come full circle.
I get great memories. Appreciate you sharing. We're going to go and take our first break. When we come back, going to have Mark share his journey, for that started in Bozeman as a college student. Now it's brought him back there. But let's go and take that break. We're coming back with more. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We'd like to thank Vital Signs Wall of Fame for their support of the podcast. If you're looking for a really cool way to show off your school record boards for all the teams, for all the different events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touch screen. That's right, touch screen video consoles. You put one of their units in your gym lobby or your main school hallway, it's going to be like a magnet for kids, for coaches. How about sponsors? Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com for more information. We also want to say thank you to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years. As an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school. And our coaches, all of our coaches, just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our student athletes loved the videos. Our parents loved the streaming. But there's so much more. Go to huddle.com. Join the 8 million users and find out how to turn your school into a Huddle school. That's huddle.com.
We are a big fan of Huddle here in Montana, and specifically at Bozeman schools. I was part of the Class BADs when we kind of got that integrated into our schools back in 2010, 11. Today, it's why we are a Huddle school district. Both Bozeman and Gallatin High School use it for all sports. And in fact, later on today, I'll probably get on Huddle myself and check out who a couple of our opponents for playoff football games this weekend.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. I'm going to imagine that in Montana, that old school, I don't know if you're old enough to have gone through this, Saturday mornings, getting up early, driving 3 hours to that convenience store for the VHS tape exchange. Any memories of those trips?
Yes, did a lot of that. Back in the days, we used to drive 3-4 hours and scout. Used to try and get some video afterwards. Used to drive to Miles City or Billings, for me, about 120 or 80 miles away, just to make sure we got the tapes. Used to drop them off on a bus going through town. I used to have to drive. I was in a little rural area, or it was rural, not a small town, but I had to drive to the interstate to meet the bus to get the bus to get the video on the bus in those days. So yes, um, and the VHX tape exchange, I was a big part of that, driving to different towns, and then Saturday, like you said, getting up Saturday and driving who knows where. Sometimes you
Mhm.
met on a country road
Yep.
halfway in between, did the video exchange, and got back home.
Yeah, and that was before GPS and all that other stuff. But hey,
Yes.
Huddle does a great job in a lot of areas, but that's one area it helps out coaches like us. Thanks for sharing that. Hey, our guest today is Mark Ator. He is the district athletic director for Bozeman schools. Again, that includes high schools and middle schools. Mark, you shared that you started your college career, or you went to college in Bozeman, and then now your career journey has brought you back to Bozeman. So, can you share with our listeners a little bit of that journey? What were some of the stops along the way?
Well, I was lucky. I ended up in Colstrip, Montana, and I was lucky enough to have a couple offers, but I was they were in the same conference I student taught in. I student taught in a school called Sydney. At that time, the Sydney Eagles were in the midst of winning 7 straight championships. They had an awesome coaching staff. Mike Gear is somebody I look up to, and the whole staff at that time. And then their school was top notch. So I was lucky enough to go there. And then, and honestly, because of their recommendations, I was able to get a job in Colstrip at the time. Colstrip was uh, by its name, you can tell it was a boomtown for coal. And in the 80s and 90s, it took off. And so it was a great school, great facilities. I got to work with a ton of good people there. So I ended up there in the fall of 1990, school year 1990-91. So, and that's where I started. And honestly, that's where I stayed for 29 years. Colstrip was my home for a long time.
Boy, I'm always, I admire very much, people that have those 20, 30-year stints at schools. Looking back at my own career, I was a climber. I started at a very small school, rural school, about 100 kids, and I just loved it. I was a head football coach, coached track. It was just a great experience, but I wanted to be a head football coach at a bigger high school. I was trying to climb that ladder. And so, moved around quite a bit. Was that ever a part of your mindset, or, were you just, hey, I got a pretty good deal here. I'm sticking around for a while.
Well, it was my mindset, but then I got to coach football, basketball, and track there. And at that time, we just had a lot of good kids, good parents, and then the coaches I worked with, both at Colstrip and in our conference at that time that we coached against, some of the best people I ever worked with. So, and I was lucky after 4 years, I was able to become a head football coach, and it was a class A school. So we were the second largest classification. There's double A, A, B, C. C is 8 and 6. So I was able to get a job coaching in the Eastern A in 1994, which was a pretty big deal because at that time, Sydney had won 7 in a row. Uh, Miles City was a great football community. They were about to go on 3. I was going up against Glendive, who had won titles in the past. Central, Laurel, Miles City. Laurel was going to win one in the very near future. So I was in what we thought was the best conference at that time. And I got to be the head football coach there. So I had moved up. That's what I wanted. And I also was able to coach basketball at the time. I helped out with track. I had to give up one when I became the head coach, but I was able to stay involved with all that stuff. So I moved up, got a head job when I was whatever that is, 26 or 27, and I was lucky. That was heaven for me.
Boy, I tell the story. I became a head football coach at 25, and I had some success as an assistant and had some good mentors and things like that. But there was no way that I was prepared or should have been hired as a head coach. That expression, "You don't know what you don't know." I mean, that was a picture of me. How was that for you, making that jump to head coach? What were some things you found out that you didn't know?
I thought I was ready to go. And then the first game, and I was calling offense, and the first couple of plays I call, just absolutely get stuffed. And then a third down play, somehow we get 8 or 9 yards, and everybody's going, "Are we going for it? What are we doing?" I actually was thinking about going for it. And I had good assistant coaches and lifelong friends still, and my defensive coordinators looked at me and said, "We're not going for it. We're punting." I was just totally shook through the first quarter, and I think we lost 10-7. We did lose to Lewistown that day, and they were a good program on the other side. They had good coaches. And I just remember the whole first half, probably the whole game, I was nervous and shell shocked. And as the play caller and everything else, nothing worked. So it was just, I was overwhelmed. And it was becoming the head coach, putting a staff together was an interesting challenge and I ended up having to add somebody or make changes each year. I shouldn't say it just because of circumstances. So, we got better at that. But the first game stood out to me because I couldn't believe how nervous I was and how fast, the decisions had to be made when you're the head guy. It's easy to be the assistant and kind of just be mumbling, "Hey, we should do that. Hey, what about this?" And all of a sudden you're the guy that actually has to make the play call, and everybody's giving you suggestions and you really don't know. So
That's right.
yes, that's what I remember. The first game went fast and it was a blur. And I don't know I'm pretty sure I didn't do my best job that day.
Yeah, no, I'm right there with you. Um, let's fast forward, making the leap from head coach to athletic director. Was that a planned move? Were you like, I know Daryl Nance from South Carolina has a great line. Many of us become ADs because we weren't fast enough to get out of the way when the superintendent tossed the keys to us. What are your memories about becoming an AD?
Well, I think it would have been 98 or 99, somewhere, after about 4 or 5 years as a head coach, there was a lot of change in the high school staff that year. And so like our AD our principal resigned, our AD became principal. The person I thought would probably be in line to be the AD or wanted to be the AD at the time was a basketball coach, and he left and went to another school. So, and then by default, I was the last one standing. I went into they advertised it. It was like in June, I went in and met with the superintendent, and the principal, and I became the AD. Basically, that's how it happened. I didn't plan on it. I thought it'd be cool. I'd mentioned Mike Gear earlier. He had just become AD, and he was also a football coach at Sydney. So that kind of made me think I could do it. Although, again, that was a big change. And there was and it happened that way. I mean, it worked out that way. Didn't plan on. Got the job in June, and then by August, I was the head football coach and the athletic director at the time, and then teaching. I taught 4 math classes too, so I was busy, and I probably since then I've always been busy.
Boy, that's definitely a load at any level. So I want to follow that up, but we're going to take another break. I know that's shocking to our regular listeners, but when we come back, I want to hear about juggling all of those different plates in the air, or I like to call them flaming chainsaws, as an athletic director. But we're coming back, so please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We'd like to say thank you to Sideline Interactive indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their products in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made as an AD was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Of course, we use it for home games, but we also use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. Their products are incredibly versatile and their customer service just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Schedule that live web demo today. We also want to thank our good friends at Snap Mobile, particularly Snap Raise. If you've ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and been a little disappointed in the results, I'm telling you, those days are over. Go to snapraise.com. We used it at our school with our teams and had great success. Our coaches loved it. Our parents and boosters loved it. I'm telling you, it works. Go to their website, check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, look no more. It's Snap Raise. And we want to say thank you to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and let their team help you become a world-class marketing guru using your school's social media. Whether it's simple social media posts or newsletters, the team at Gipper is going to have you up and running in no time. It's professional graphic design made easy. Talk about a time saver, it's a time creator. Go to Gipper.com for more information. And as always, don't forget to mention the podcast. That's Gipper.com.
Yes, we just purchased our second score table from Sideline Interactive. We had it at Gallatin High School when we created the school 6 years ago, and we just added Sideline Interactive to Bozeman High School. And I found it interesting in the advertisement there that you just showed. One of the schools that they have there is the University of Montana Western, or as we call it here, just Western Bulldogs in Dillon, Montana. That's who I consulted with when I bought the Sideline Interactive tables. So we're very happy with the product.
Oh, again, I really appreciate you sharing that. And I'm right there with you. You heard me in my sponsor read. It probably is the best purchase I ever made as an AD for what we got out of it. Beyond home games, we use it at pep rallies, the signing ceremonies.
Signing ceremonies.
That
Absolutely.
was just a huge deal for us.
Yep.
The table is just the perfect size for mom, dad, the student athlete, and maybe one other person. I'll create using the platform and the laptop that comes with it a slideshow with the mom will usually get me pictures of the student athlete
Yep.
when they were a little kid playing pee-wee ball, pictures on their college visitation, and that just plays on a loop. And every time, the mom, sometimes the dad, they're wiping away tears as they watch that. And that's something they can take with them after we do the ceremony. So it's just been a great tool for us.
Yep. No, same thing. We use it for our signing ceremonies at Gallatin. I'm hoping we'll be able to do the same at Bozeman once everybody gets a little more, is able to use it and understands how it works. But yes, it's been great. We use it, even if we can put pictures on there or just the logos, the TV, the screens are so bright. It just adds a lot to it right away. So,
and again, for listeners, it's a huge income source, sponsorships. We had it paid for actually before it came out of the box. We went to two of our local sponsors and they were name sponsors, but then we sold ads on it. The list just kept growing of people who wanted to have their ad playing during the ball games on the Sideline Interactive screen. And the other thing is there are so many features, special effects, explosions, confetti, or on the screen, of course. There's so many effects. You are never ever going to use all of the tools that come in just the basic package. It's just such a great tool, if you will, for an athletic director. So, Mark, thanks for sharing that. I want to follow up before we hear about Bozeman schools and all the great things that you do there. How do you or did you juggle having those multiple hats as head coach, AD, and teaching almost a full load of courses?
I just tried to stay organized as much as possible. Sometimes I struggled. Sometimes, if it was the football playoffs, I probably didn't do as good a job in the classroom as I should have. Being able to be the AD and football coach at that time at Colstrip, as I mentioned earlier, we had a lot of good people. I meant the coaches and the teachers I worked with and then parents. So a lot of people would help out. Fellow administrators would cover games when I was coaching. We usually had parents who always took care of the chain gang for me, or community members who always ran the score tables or the scoreboards. And so those people would just jump in and go. So I basically had to have an outline so everybody could follow. But after that, everybody would jump in. And then I also had good head coaches that I could trust to handle those things. Like when I was the AD and the first couple of years, like in football, girls basketball, it was the same time. The girls basketball coach is one of the best coaches I ever worked with. And so I didn't have to worry about anything. I could coach football, he could coach girls basketball, and we'd touch base usually in the coach's office in the evening afterwards or whatever. So, and our cross country coaches, we did well in cross country always in that, and the community supported that sport. So I think having good people around helped out. Having a understanding wife is probably the biggest key, in family. My wife knew it. There were times I'd get home from a football road trip, like we go to Sydney, I'd be home at 1:32. As you know, as a former football coach, you don't sleep. So you get all the video recorded. I would sleep for maybe an hour from 5 to 6 or 7. And then I'd probably have to go to the high school and set up for, who knows, a middle school volleyball
Yeah.
jamboree, or a high school volleyball, or a freshman football game, or any of those activities. So, I didn't sleep Friday nights usually during the fall season. I ran on adrenaline, and then would get to those sports. But being around a lot of good people who jumped in and helped out, and having a wife who understood and helped with that, and and a lot of times she was taking care of the family stuff. The family grew up in the gym. My kids grew up in the gym. They grew up on the football field. They would set up forts with the football dummies. All of my
Yes.
kids did that. And so, it was a great place. And obviously our other coaches had kids too. And even here in Bozeman, I've tried to make that clear that, hey, it's a family thing. If the kids can be there, if you got to have your kids there and you can make it work, then make it work. And so that way we don't lose sight of what's important.
Again, I'm so glad you mentioned both of those. The kids on the sideline building the forts, absolutely. And it's we know this. You know this. I know this, and I think our listeners know this. Having a supportive spouse is so critical, and it's just so obvious that our AD guests, they don't mention it when we talk about what three tools should go into your toolbox. So I'm not trying to poison your toolbox, but it is without a doubt. You just got to have it. You can't succeed. Um, let's hear a little bit about Bozeman. You mentioned two high schools, two middle schools. What's the enrollment? What's the setting? Let our listeners get a feel for what a day in the life of Mark Ator's AD role is.
Yeah. Well, I applied for the job. The big key to coming to Bozeman, one is I loved being here as a student, but at the time, in Bozeman High School had a great reputation, both academics and athletics. It was probably considered, a lot of people thought, if not the best school in Montana. At least that's what I felt. And so an opportunity to join. And at the time, Gallatin High School was being added. This is the 7th year we've had Gallatin High School. Is that right? Sixth year. 6 years. My 7th year here. So my first year, I got to be a part of planning for Gallatin. I got to hire all the coaches, order equipment. I got to order lots of new stuff, which, you don't get to do very often. I got to do it for all the sports. I probably went overboard. I know the district admin was nervous at times and had to double check and slow me down a little bit, but it was just a great opportunity. I got here to work with, again, good people, in a community that supports education tremendously, the high schools and university. And then I got to be part of starting a new high school essentially. And it was great. And it's been everything I would expect it to be. Bozeman and Gallatin, we've been lucky. We've started the second high school, but both schools have competed at a high level right from the start. In the last couple of weeks, Bozeman golf has won cross country, and both boys and girls, or girls golf and both boys and girls cross country. Gallatin High has won state soccer, and in one state boys soccer, girls finished second. Bozeman was in the mix there too. So we're very successful. And again, that works out because of good kids, community support, and I work with great coaches. And I should mention our high school admin, great people to work with. So I mean that's what it's like. What's a day in my life? I mean, just like everybody else, I wake up the first thing I learned, not the first thing, but the one thing I've learned in the last few years is to take better care of myself. So I try to get up in the morning and go work out, up by 5:30, start checking emails, see if anything happened overnight, get to the gym, get a workout in. Usually I have a coordinator in each building Between 7 and 8, I check in with my family. My grandson's living with me right now, so I check in with him for a little bit, see how he's doing. He and my daughter live with me. Maybe take him to school, and then I start checking in with my coordinators, and then it's full speed ahead. Last week we hosted soccer on Tuesday and Saturday, and then we hosted the a state football playoff game on Friday. This week's a slow week. We only have one event we're hosting, a state football playoff game, and then next week, Bozeman is host to the state volleyball tournaments. So it's a all class tournament. So I'll be in charge of the AA state volleyball, just because I'm lucky enough to be in Bozeman, so I'm in charge of the AA state volleyball table.
Well, obviously, you're doing a great job with these things because the state keeps bringing them back and letting you host. Um, we were talking earlier about the whole soccer thing. Um, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, and we'll do this at the end of the show too, if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, pick your brain a little bit about how you run your program there at Bozeman, how you work with your coaches, how to host a championship event. What's the best way that they can get a hold of Mark Ator?
Well, my email, school wise, it's Mark Ator, MARK period ATOR at BSD7.org. I also have a personal one, coachator@gmail.com. That's pretty easy to find. I'm active on social media, Twitter wise. I promote our schools and athletics and education as much as possible on there. So you can find I'm Bozeman AD on Twitter, and so that's a pretty good way. And after that, if you get a hold of me that way, I'll give you my cell number. I think almost everybody in Bozeman has it right now. I never, I people don't have any trouble getting a hold of me. But I was telling you earlier, yeah, my signature, so people remember how to pronounce my name. But it's Coach, and then it's Ator, 8R. That's so we keep it simple. That's my text signature.
We'll put all that in the show notes. And again, we're going to give that information out again at the end of the podcast. Let's go and take another quick break, but we are coming back with more. So please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Home Campus. You've heard me say many times, Home Campus is a platform that you're going to use every single day, whether it's scheduling, rosters, or results. Their athletic clearance and eligibility platform alone is a game changer. You have to see it to believe it. To get started, just go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We want to say thanks to Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. My assistant athletic director, along with thousands of others, got his master's through the Ohio program, and it was a great experience. It's very affordable, just 20 months, totally online. And here's a cool feature. While they were completing their master's degree, they also got to complete 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Check out Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. We also want to thank Hometown. Hometown is truly changing the game for schools and organizations with their solutions that include things like, digital ticketing. They're still the number one digital ticketing provider to high schools and colleges. But how about athletic website construction, fee-free fundraising, and a whole lot more? Whether you're an AD, a coach, even a principal, Hometown is going to help you save time, raise more money, and bring your community together. That's hometown.com. Check them out today. And as always, tell them you heard about it on the podcast. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest, once again, is Mark Ator. He's the District Athletic Director for Bozeman Public Schools. Mark, you and I were talking before we even started to record, and you're very active with your state athletic director association and with the state coaches association, organizing conferences, et cetera. You also, as an AD, I think this is one of the things that ADs like to do the most. You're providing professional development opportunities for your coaching staff. We don't always get to do it as much as we want, but I think it's something we'd like to do. What are some things you do for your coaches, and how are you involved with, let's say, your state and even the national organization?
Well, I think professional development, the biggest thing, I wish I did more, honestly. I think I could, that's probably the one area. In fact, one of my goals, as far as evaluations going next year is try to do better at that with our coaching staff. It's just started with the two schools to get something organized. The big thing we do at the beginning of the year is just our kickoff to the year. I try to get all of our coaches there. It's not mandatory, but I really, really want you there. We provide a meal, and then we just visit and we go over all the changes, um, from the state, from the district, some policies we need to go over, and make sure everybody has a good understanding of that, and then make sure that the coaches know that I'm available to help and answer questions whenever possible. So, and one of the things I do with that is, as far as our coaches go, is you met the Coaches Association, the Montana Coaches Association. I mentioned that I joined when I was 37. It's been a really big staple in Montana, and I try to promote that with our coaches just because of, you got the camaraderie. The Montana Coaches Association also does all of our awards for our athletes. So I think I try to make sure our coaches understand that it's not a high school association or a Bozeman school association thing. It's a coaches association thing. And by joining that, you're supporting it. And then, our coaches association provides a liability of $1 million, whether you're in the classroom or on the field. So I try to make sure that's clear with our coaches. I think as far as professional development, I try to send our coaches as much of the things that I come across, in the literature that we all get. And if I find something specific to a sport or just in general, I try to share with them. I think the biggest thing I do as far as professional development, or I try to do, is make sure that the coaches know I'm there and I support them, and we go from there. And encourage them to to go out and professionally develop on themselves, go to clinics, read up on stuff. And sometimes it's not just the sports stuff, but read up on supervision, read up on working with, different learning styles. I think that's something that's important. And I actually think our coaches are motivated enough that they probably tell you they're not worried about professional development. And that's, but I think that's something that they would, they do need and they do want. I laugh. I've got great coaches, but they look forward to they want to be evaluated. They want to, hey, we'll sit down and talk. They want, if there's something they want to work on, or if they want a goal, they'll do that. The good coaches want that. And so that's, I just tried to work on a couple of evals this morning before we got on there too. So that's also part of just the professional development. Sit down. What could you do better? I always have an open-ended question. What could you do better? What do you need me to do better? Those kinds of things. So long-winded story. I think professional development for my coaches, because it's two high schools, I think there's a challenge here, but I think it's something that, I want to work on over the next few years.
No, and I love that approach. As I went through my own AD career, I kind of morphed into that type of evaluation, if you will. We just called it an end of the year review. And, if a coach was not going to be renewed, they knew it before they got to that meeting because of multiple conversations that had occurred over the season. But I would tell the coaches, when they would come in, and they knew what I wanted. What's a couple of things that you're really proud of? What's a couple of things that, or at least one thing that you want to work on to get better? And how can I help you achieve that goal? And our school is very good about giving me funding to let them go to our state coaches association for their sport, go to those clinics, or to travel and go visit a college campus or something like that. So again, trying to get away, which I did, from that long form that I remember going through as a young coach with, 18 different sections, and each one had 6 subsections, and just it just wasn't a useful tool, in my opinion, as a young coach, or as I started to use those. I don't think it was helping me. I don't think it was helping our coaches.
Right. And I agree. And I have modified mine way down. I just did it again got it to fewer questions or fewer, uh, you know, points of interest, bullet points, if you will, to look at, um, because I don't find it helpful. And then, even if you've got, uh, your computer and stuff today, like, for us, it's 17 sports at each high school. So that's 34 evaluations. And then, sports end at the same time. Time becomes an issue. Just, hey, how am I going to get, I can't do 34 3-page evaluations. Oh, I'm just not going to do a good enough job to do that, and so I've tried to shrink that down, make it more conversation. And you're right, if a coach isn't coming back, you should be having those conversations throughout the year so you avoid the element of surprise if that's going to happen. And those have been awkward when it's happened, but yes, I think if you maintain communication throughout the year, um, that shouldn't be a surprise. And the evaluation process, positive or things to work on, won't be a surprise to the coach or you either in the end.
Right. And again, finding coaches is hard enough. Keeping them is even harder. And so it's on us as ADs to, work with them, help them, improve in areas that they need to improve on, and help them grow so that, you're not trying to replace the coach. It's the hardest
No,
thing. Yeah.
that's the hardest part anymore is finding coaches, and right now, when I first started coaching, everybody, almost everybody was in the district, was a teacher, and in Bozeman schools, I'm lucky. There's still a lot of them, but there's a lot that aren't. And we've got to do everything we can to support keeping those coaches. Because now, when a job opened up, even when I got here the first year, we were interviewing for new positions at Gallatin High School. We had a lot of applicants for football, for basketball, well, volleyball, we moved somebody over, but there was a lot of applications that came in. I just remember looking at them, and I was just going, wow, within Montana, out of state, quality people. And now, as time has progressed over the 7 or 8 years, it's hard to find somebody. We are out recruiting. I put notes on social media. I visit with people. Finding assistant coaches is extremely hard. Um, we try to work with, can we avoid conflicts of interest with certain people, parents or otherwise? Sometimes, can we do that? Can we get them in? Our university works with us. We work with them to find young people to come in and help assist, and maybe we can hold on to them, those kinds of things. So yeah, finding coaches and keeping coaches, good coaches, is a challenge now. And so, hopefully our good coaches know that our coaches know that I support them. And I've told parents, and I tell our coaches, a lot of times I'll let people vent to me. If they want something done, they got the coach. But if you're going to vent, you're going to listen to me. And you know, I don't tell my coaches all the stuff I hear sometimes because the parents are venting, and it's not going to do them any good. If I
Exactly.
feel like there's something we need to work on, if there's an issue with kid safety, if I see an issue coming that the coaches gotta know about, then I let them know. But otherwise, I just make sure that they know that I support them, and as long as they're doing the right things. And and I go to practices, and if I see in games, my thing is if I see the kids listening and I see the kids giving good effort, a lot of times, how do you evaluate a basketball coach? Do they dive after loose balls? Pretty simple. Do they work hard? Are they getting better? Those kinds of things. If I know that, then I know that they're buying into the coaches. And so I'll do everything I can to support them and keep them coaching for Bozeman High and Gallatin High.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I think two things real quick. Um, it's like our principals or our superintendents, and it's the same thing. The people coming to them, that AD, that Jake, I mean, they hear so much that we never hear about. And, but having that trust and that respect, both above and below, if you will, that's so important. And yeah, those intangible things. I would tell our coaches, yeah, we want to win. And we're going to talk about helping you, win games. But at the end of you could win every single game and I fire you at the next day. Or we could go, oh, and whatever. And we're celebrating like we just won the Super Bowl. I want to hear kids say, boy, what a great season. Or I can't wait for next year. Or I wish we had 5 more games. Those are the things that we want to hear and we want to see. In your example, diving for loose balls. Kids are doing that. they care. They bought in. They are playing for that coach. So, Mark, this has just been so cool. Definitely, you are now a friend of the show status. Looking forward to connecting with you down in Tampa. But we're not done yet. We always wrap up with the athletic director's toolbox. We've made reference to a couple of different tools so far today. Um, I'm going to take a break here. I know that's, again, shocking to our listeners. We're going to hear from Athletic Surveys, who sponsor this segment. When we come back, I'm going to challenge you to send out a brand new athletic director on their first job, but I'm only going to let you put 3 tools in the toolbox. So let's take that break, and when we return, we're going to see what Mark Ator puts in his new athletic director toolbox. We want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment. You know, in my school, we use surveys for just about everything, for student athletes, for coaches, and for parents. And the information that would come back on these surveys, it was almost always over the top positive. We still got to hear from those squeaky wheel parents, but the surveys allowed us to hear their concerns, usually address them before they turned into something big. But going back to that positive feedback, having that type of data was incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with a frustrated parent or maybe your principal, sometimes even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everybody in your program. That's athleticsurveys.com. Check them out today. Well, it's that time of the podcast. We've been visiting today with Mark Ator, longtime coach and athletic director in Montana. He's the district AD for Bozeman Public Schools, their high schools and their middle school. Tremendous background in athletics. But right now, I'm going to task him with sending out a brand new athletic director on their first job. But I'm only going to let him put 3 items in the toolbox. So, Mark, what 3 tools are going to go into your new athletic director toolbox?
Well, I think the first thing, I mentioned earlier, if you're married, you got to have a spouse that supports you and willing to jump in and go with you. You got to keep them involved. I think the next thing I would, mention is relationships and the ability to ask questions. When you become the AD, there are a lot of other ADs, and go to those to ask for help. The only way the way I got through all this is I continually leaned on other people for help, both coaching, a good coach, I'm sure you know this as a football coach, steals things and steals plays, designs, ideas, whatever else. And so that's what I've done. With me, I build relationships, start asking other ADs what they do. And then, and then that same boat, become familiar with their high school association. In Montana, the MHSA, we have great people working at the MHSA, and you're going to have to know what they want from you for, all the different forms and policies and all that. So get familiar with that. Get familiar with your association and the people that work there. I was lucky enough in Montana. I was on our MHSA board, our executive board, for 4 years. And so I got to be a part of the decision-making process when working with our directors, and then also, serve the state at that time. So that was a great learning experience and see the benefits of that. So, relationships, it sounds corny still, but if you become the AD of a school district, make sure you become familiar with the policies of that athletic, of the school. Have a handbook. Be ready to go. If you don't have a handbook, find somebody to help you with a handbook. I was lucky enough in Montana's, it's a big state, but it's a small group of people. We all know each other. In terms of handbooks, my old superintendent went to work for the Montana School Boards Association way back when. And so in Montana, they're in charge of policies. So when he left Colstrip, I would have him review my handbooks. And at Bozeman, I have him look over our handbooks, and I call him. So that's another toolbox in there. And I guess I didn't give you anything in, paperwork wise. Have some forms, but I would get that stuff from other people, use what they have, and modify it to you. So, relationships with fellow ADs, start building those if you haven't done it already. A relationship with your high school association. Get familiar with policies of your school district, the handbook, and also get, as I mentioned earlier, familiar with the policies of your high school association. There's so many things going on in athletics today, trying to keep track of everything. Like for me, uh, working with out of district students, homeschool students, when can they be involved? Private school students can participate with public school students in sports. So I have to know, we have to know where they live. Are they in the right district? We have to see transcripts. I have to review transcripts each semester, those kinds of things. And that's all because of the policies of our school district, of our high school association, and actually policies that have been put in place because of our state legislature. So uh, don't, you have to want to learn. You have to be willing to learn. You have to be willing to listen. You got to be willing to admit that sometimes you're wrong and somebody has a better idea, and adapt. You got to be able to adapt on the run. Don't be afraid of change. A lot of
Well,
stuff right
I
there.
love them all. You probably saw me writing them down. You got on a roll there. I think in true AD fashion, you squeezed in about 6 or 7 different tools. I'm going to keep your first 5 there. They'll go in the book, but they're all great tools. You're absolutely right. They're all great. Mark, one more time, if one of our listeners wants to reach out, connect with you, pick your brain a little bit, what's the best way they can do that?
The best way to reach me is I'm the athletic director for the Bozeman School District. So my school email is mark.ator at bsd7.org, Bozeman School District 7.org. Personal email, which is really easy if you just want to get to that, is coachator@gmail.com, COACHATOR. And then I'm active on Twitter, supporting education and athletics. That we keep it limited to that. And my handle there is just at Bozeman AD8R, AD8R.
Well, Mark, thanks again for coming on. As I mentioned, you are now definitely friend of the show status, and looking forward to seeing you very soon at the National Convention in Tampa.
Looking forward to being there. December is a decent time to leave Montana and go to Florida. Odds are it's going to be a little bit warmer, a little bit sunnier.
I'm going to say, we can always tell the folks from the colder weather states they've got the flip flops and the tank tops on. So
Yeah, we get down there about a day early. And just to plug in too, the NIAAA, great learning experience, the workshops, the clinics, the LTC classes. It's a great opportunity for professional development, meet people. Every time I go, I'm impressed with the speakers, and I walk out of there with a notepad full of notes. That's another tool I have, even though I'm old school with a notepad or new school with a laptop. I walk around with those two things quite a bit.
Well, thanks again. All the best for continued success at Bozeman. And please let me know if there's anything I can do down the road.
All right. Thank you.
For our listeners, we want to say thanks to you and just remind you that we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day, trying to share stories and best practices from the world of athletics. So please join us again on the next episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time.